Hello everybody, I'm Tiffany here with Belle and Flareon once again, and today I am doing a book review. Woo! Finished another book. Let's go. That's another one on my read book list. Let's go! This book I think is gonna come as a surprise. I did haul it. That video should be up soon. That's right, I finally have another book and movie haul. It has been forever, I know. I'm sorry about that. This book was actually a book I had to read for school, and I wasn't actually sure if I was going to review it or not. There have been school books in the past that I have reviewed and school books that I have not reviewed, but this book was so captivating to me that I said to myself, I have to do a book review on this and talk about it because it is really good. So thank you to my English teacher at Glendale Community College for introducing me to this book. This was a complete surprise for me and I just loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible. And the book that I am talking about is Orhan'S Inheritance by Orhan'S. I probably pronounced that really bad. I'm sorry. This book, it is so good. It is sad, but it is so good. It came out in 2015, I believe, and this was actually her debut novel, so bravo, because this is an awesome debut novel. I don't know if it's everybody's cup of tea. It is historical fiction, and there is a love story involved, of course. But if you're more inclined to fantasy, dystopia, and don't really like those type of books, then this might not be the book for you. But I loved it, and I love fantasy and dystopia, and it had no elements of that whatsoever. I have not read a book this sad in a very long time. I'm warning you of that now. For those of you who want statistics, it has a 3.92 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I gave it 4 stars. Maybe should be 4.5 mainly. I really enjoyed this, guys. The only reason I wouldn't give it 5 stars is there's maybe a couple things I wish would have happened in the book that didn't. But that's just me being a reader that wishes the book could end perfectly. But I do think that 4.5 stars is an accurate rating. So 3.92 isn't that far off. Usually on Goodreads, if you have books that are in the 3.9s, that still means they're pretty good. They just missed the 4 star by like much. One of my favorite books, Young Elite, is like a 3.96, and I don't get why it is not closer to 5 because that is such an amazing book. For those of you who want a synopsis, it takes place during the Armenian genocide in the 1900s, and it follows a Turkish guy and an Armenian girl and how their lives cross each other. It's a love story between them. That's very obvious from the get-go. I did learn a lot about what happened, and I think one thing that I do like about this book, and you can read it and say I'm wrong, definitely, but I do feel like she did a really good job of not being completely biased towards one side. She shows the atrocities that happened to the Armenians and gives justice to that. But she also follows this Turkish character and his interactions with other people and creates sympathy for these individuals. Now, I'm not saying everybody on both sides is perfect. You have people on one side that are and there you have people on the other side that are Overall, I thought she did a really good job of balancing it out because it could very easily be very one-sided on this, and I felt like she did a great job of showing both sides and showing both aspects in a way. And it really emphasizes on the point of having these two very different cultures that really don't like each other and everything, but showing there's good on both sides and there's bad on both sides. It's not everybody's good, everybody's bad. Just all of the characters are really complex. The plot is so complicated, but it is so good, and you know me, I love my complicated plots. And maybe that is why I love this so much. Please go read it. Please. For me. That is really all I'm going to tell you in the spoilery section because I need to talk about this book so much and I need to get to the spoilery section now. Thank you, non-spoilery people, for joining me. Go read this book. It is so good. Please, if you're going to stick around and you haven't read this book, I'm just warning you, you may really not want to be spoiled for this book because it is so good. And maybe you won't agree with me and you'll come back in the comments and be like, Tiffany, what the heck were you thinking? I hated this book. But you know what? I loved it. So, there! Thank you, non-spoilery people, for joining me. Come back and read this and then we can discuss everything that happened in here together. Alright. Goodbye, you guys. Goodbye! At the beginning of this book, I gotta say, I kind of knew I was going to like it because of the way everything was set up. Because Kamal, the old guy who dies at the beginning and leaves the will, leaves a mystery in there that I knew was going to be overall very interesting. And I just loved the way the book set everything up. It just left little hints for you. In the end, you do not see coming whatsoever. You just have a bunch of immediate questions of course, right off the bat, who is Seta Melkonian. So you find out it's Armenian, and you're kind of confused why. You know she's in California, and that Orhan has to go there, and you're not really sure why everything is left to this one person. And I found it really interesting that I was immediately captivated by the story and thrown into how the character was feeling pretty much automatically. When Orhan was upset because the house was left, I felt that betrayal even though I barely knew Orhan. I was with him saying, who is this chick that just came up and gets this house? No. No. I felt that the author did a really great job of setting up what was to come. And that kind of happened throughout the book where you'd have some questions, kind of get them answered, but then you'd have 10 times more. You meet Seta, and so you realize that they did know each other in the past because she's saying, oh, he could never forget me, and you're interested on what happened with them. And you kind of sense it's a romance, but you're not 100% sure. But when you switch to the past, all of a sudden her name is Lucine. And then it just raises a whole bunch of more questions of, well, why is her name Seta? Why is it not Lucine anymore? What happened between them? Because they're adorable in this right now. What is going on? Help! I can't figure it out! I expected it to go completely different than what it did. I did not expect it to be as heartbreaking as this book was. That first time when Kamal goes and sees that her father is killed and comes back and she completely yells at him and tells him to go away, I was so mad because her thought process was, this is karma for wanting to be with him. And I was yelling at the book saying, Lucine, be with him. He's beautiful. Where is he in my life? Of course, she runs him away, and then he goes off into the army. And so all of a sudden, I'm thinking, well then, they never meet up again? What's going on? They have to meet up one more time. Lucine's whole story is so tragic though. I have never felt really bad for a character as much as I felt bad for Lucine. Her life is horrible. I was almost breaking down. Every single character that gets taken away from her, I felt so much. It was just another pain in the heart every single time. First her dad, then Anush gets taken. Part of me still hopes that she'd be returned, but she's never returned. Then her mom dies. And don't even get me started about the baby. The way everything was set up with that was really beautiful though, because you have the whole thing with Anush and the mom, and then you cut back to the present, and you have Orhan trying to figure out what's going on. And I found it really interesting that the history that you're finding out between the characters, you're not finding out as Orhan. You're finding out through her thoughts, and then when you cut back to the present, Orhan still doesn't know any of this yet. He only finds out really at the end. It cuts back after she's almost raped and Bedros saves her. And you know Bedros is alive because it mentions that in the present, that Ani is Bedros's daughter. But you know that the baby's gone, and you're kind of trying to figure it out, and then there's just a hint of her saying, I killed him. And you're thinking, what the heck happened? And freaking out the whole entire time. That's what would happen constantly throughout the book, is just these little drops of hints would be added. And some were meant to mislead you, and some were meant to make you stare at it like, did I just read that type of thing? And finding out what she did to the baby, oh my gosh, it was so sad, but you couldn't be mad at her. But it was so painful. I've never felt this sad reading a book. This girl has the worst luck in the world. And then we run into Fatma. Now this is where my mind and what I thought was going to happen ended up being completely and utterly wrong. You think at the beginning of Fatma, she's the aunt of Orhan. That's what you were believing this whole entire time. When I heard Fatma in the story, I didn't think, wait, is this the same Fatma that's in real life? My process on it all was that after she met up with Kamal again, which was the sweetest thing, we are coming back to that, they do it, which is good for them because they deserve to. So I thought what was going to happen was that Lucine gets pregnant, and you already know Fatma's pregnant, and I thought that Kamal would come back, and so she would raise Mustafa. Fatma, something happens to Fatma, and she has to raise Fatma's child too, and names her Fatma in honor of Fatma for doing everything for her. I was 100% wrong, clearly. For those of you who have read it, I was just wrong. I was just plain outright wrong, and it got complicated. And Fatma is not his aunt, it's his grandmother. And I'm thinking, how old is this woman? I'm really confused right now. The heartbreakingness comes in. That was the most tragic ending to a relationship that I have read ever, besides a character dying. They reunite, and I'm really happy inside. And then it ends with them reuniting and cuts back to the present. And so I'm thinking she's going to talk about how he stayed with her for a while. He ends up going to Istanbul in order to try and make a living. You hear from her that she waited 6 months, a year, and she heard nothing. So now I'm getting pissed, thinking, Kamal, what the heck are you doing? Did you just abandon her after everything that happened? And of course, it doesn't stop getting crazy. No, it amps up the crazy, because Fatma has Lucine write a letter saying she's pregnant so that Kamal can come back and then she can raise the child with Kamal. But of course, what happens? Lucine's long-lost uncle from the beginning comes back in, and he's there now, and Lucine decides to stop waiting and follow her uncle and find Bedros, which I do not blame her for, because I get it. She thought Kamal was completely gone and wasn't coming back. He didn't respond to the letter immediately, but here is where the heartbreak comes in, because he does come back. He comes back. And the baby is there, and Fatma does not tell him that it was not his child. And I'm just sitting there with my mouth hanging open and tears almost streaming down my face, feeling this huge, heartbreaking moment. And I was just a mess afterwards. I sat there in silence for such a long time, and they never meet up again. I was so pissed. I was mad. I was saying that is not how it should end. They should meet up one more time and get another reunion, because that is an awful way. He came back. She needs to know he came back. But at the same time, that heartbreaking element to it is what made me fall in love with this book. It's not supposed to be about this perfect romance. It's about a really dark time in history between the Turkish and the Armenian people and this Romeo and Juliet situation, basically. And in some instances for me, it was even worse than when you have a character die. Because when that character passes away and it's a love interest, you get that they're never gonna meet up again, and that hurts. But the fact that these two characters never meet up and they are still alive, and Fatma doesn't say anything, but even the fact that Seda never reached out and tried to see if anything happened with Kamal after sending that letter, she never reached out, she just left, which that I am a little bit pissed about, that she did not try and come back and see if he actually returned or not. That made it 10 times worse, because you know they're both out there. When you go back to the beginning of the book, the will hurts so much more, because you know he found her. He finally found her, and he never got to see her again. And that is heartbreaking. That is 10 times more heartbreaking to me than somebody passing away in that way in a book. But knowing that these two characters love each other, and that they never run into each other again, but they're both still alive and they're still out there, and if they really, really tried, they could end up together again and run into each other. That's heartbreaking. That is pure heartbreak. That is something about me a little bit, is that the books I do really love are when the authors go to places you don't usually expect. The ones that aren't really afraid to kill off your main character and make you feel really mad. Because I get really mad, but then I applaud the author for going there and knowing exactly what to do. There have been books that I have read that I've said in the past where all the characters survive, but it's this last-minute miracle that causes all of them to survive. And I end up being, in a weird way, really disappointed, because I was expecting to feel heartbreak, and I didn't. I like the ones that aren't afraid to show the nitty-gritty and break your heart over and over and over and over again. The character Ani, I did like Ani, but she annoyed me at the same time, and I for some reason thought something was going to happen between Orhan and Ani, just because they end up actually not really being related at all. And Ani, I felt sympathy for, but I didn't at the same time. I agreed with Seda, where she made it about herself, and it's not all about you, and it's not all about living in the past. It's their past to tell, and if they want to share it, they can share it, and if they don't want to share it, then they don't have to share it. It should be shared in some way, but never force anybody to do that or make it about yourself. And that's one thing about this, is that the author, yes, focused it on a love story, but it wasn't all about that. You had those times where he's in the army and you're introduced to all of these Turkish people that you actually really grow to like, but then you also have Lucine's point of view and being on that march of death, basically, her going through all of this trauma. You get them both separate and see how their societies are, and you see the good in each society and you see the bad in each society insanely. She uses each character to show the different aspects of that time. She shows Kamal and his Turkish environment, and she shows Lucine and her Armenian experience. And it is about also acknowledging what happened. And I think the author did it in a really good way. This was a really great book. This is really all I have to say about it. If you stayed through the spoilers, still read it, because oh my gosh, the emotions are insane in this book. It is so good. I highly, highly, highly recommend it to anybody. Just don't read it if you're really looking for a super happy book, because this one will make you a little bit depressed, in all honesty. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any other book or movie recommendations, you can leave them in the comments below. I love hearing your comments, so don't be afraid to leave them. Thanks so much for watching these week after week. I really appreciate it. I'm trying to keep it up, but thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. For any new updates on whether videos are going to be up or not, you can go to my blog, tiffanymillion.blogspot.com, and it keeps you updated on everything that's been going on for me during the week and if I'm going to be able to get videos up or not. Have a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, whatever time of the day you're watching this in. Don't forget to be awesome. Alright, goodbye!